Good evening, Bushy. It's wonderful to see lots of you out in your garden. What a wonderful idea. Lovely to hear the birds tweeting as well. And we're by our fireside, but we've got our garden right over here. And it really has been a magnificent, warm, wonderful day. We had a very active water fight in our garden, which some of you who live nearer to us might have been able to hear the shrieks. But in general, we've really been enjoying the sunshine today. And the weather in general. And I think what we wanted to talk about today is during this very challenging time of lockdown, what some of our favourite parts have been and what some of the hardest parts have been. So over to you, Elfhanan. What would you say your favourite part about our lockdown time together has been?
It's really interesting because lockdown for us was in place of something that was supposed to be special anyway. We had chosen these 3 months to be our sabbatical period. Yeah. And it's hard to remember.
It seems like a long time ago we discussed that.
And there were, I would say, almost a year in the planning for the amazing things that we were going to do. In fact, right now I'm supposed to be in Israel studying in yeshiva for 2 weeks to round off the relaxing sabbatical period, and then to go into July the 4th, when I was supposed to arrive back, Independence Day, for the new beginning of us coming back. I didn't realize that it would be a new beginning for all of us. So when I consider what has been special or meaningful about lockdown, I think it is probably important to keep in the context of we were expecting special things anyway. So the bar for me was very high about what was going to be amazing over this period of time. And probably, therefore, what I've appreciated the most has been the simplicity of life that we've experienced together. Things have slowed down, and I've learned that all the plans in the world mean absolutely nothing. Yeah. And actually, there's a bit of comfort in that. Yeah. What has been, for you, some of the highlights or special experiences?
So I think for me as well, it's really a matter of we've had the chance to peel back all the layers and actually appreciate what really matters. So simple things like not having to rush everyone out of the house in the morning, to me, has just been amazing. It's such a nice feeling that we just don't have to have that pressure of getting onto the M1 before all the traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning. And even now, the last couple of weeks with the kids back in school, the traffic's just not the way that it was. And it's just that little bit less pressure. Or in terms of keeping everyone busy and doing things, again, it's just been enjoying the simple things like, you know, teaching the kids card games or you know, Shabbat has been unbelievable for us, that finally we actually have a day of rest where even if we wanted to, we can't do anything, you know, it's just a time of spending special time together. And actually today, talking about simple pleasures, I had something very exciting happen to me. So today I headed out to the high street because today's Rosh Chodesh. So it's very, very exciting, the beginning of a new month, and we thought we'd go and buy some Rosh Chodesh treats. And actually talking about simple pleasures, we've discovered a very important and exciting treat that you can all take part in if you'd like to. If you're making a barbecue, or even if you're not, we did this indoors today actually. What you can do is if you take some marshmallows and you roast them either on the barbecue or on your grill, but the new Feldman addition to this is if you take some kosher Haribos and put them on the stick with the marshmallow, it's extra special. But that wasn't the exciting thing that I found.
I would just like to comment that no one offered me any special marshmallows or Haribos, and this is the first I'm hearing about it now. And it sounds great, and hopefully I, along with the rest of you guys, will make it one day, because I'm probably never going to get in the house. So that's the way it is.
Marshmallows with kosher Haribos. But to be fair, you were on Mincha and Mariv on the virtual shul, so you did miss out. But look what I found on our high street. So those of you who are fans of the blue bottle of Bartonura, I found this in flax, and I have to say that one of the most amazing parts of lockdown has been to see how both Kelmans and Flax have been incredible at supporting us and supporting the whole community and everyone who needs. But look, it's the blue bottle of Bartonura in your own can. So you don't need to open up a bottle and share it. You can have your own one. So l'chaim, everyone, the simple pleasures of enjoying special things over lockdown. Who needs to go to fancy restaurants when you can have Bartonura in a can?
And who needs to go to Dublin to get a Guinness? And all you need to do is pour yourself one from a cold one from the refrigerator. So here's to pubs reopening, but we'll have our own Feldman pub and hopefully Bushy pub, wherever you guys are having your drink.
Enjoy, l'chaim.
L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Melech shakol ne'b'dvaro.
And Elchanan, do you want to explain to everyone why Guinness is not normally our beer of choice? Do you want to explain to everyone why it is that we have that in our home at the moment?
Yeah, so there's probably twofold. We're talking about the present, so I'm going to focus pretty much on the present. Jacqueline and I did a few years ago take a one-day trip to Dublin, and also one thing I would recommend that we appreciated before lockdown is being able to get on a plane and go somewhere. We can't do that now, and we understand that, but the tickets were so cheap that we went to Dublin for the day a couple of years ago, had the most amazing time, got to go to all the wonderful historic landmarks in Dublin, i.e. all the many pubs that are there, and I got a taste for Guinness. But that's not the reason why we have it in the house. The reason why we have it in the house is because we've had a chance to have some culinary adventures during the lockdown. And this has been something which I think this probably combines the best of Rosenberg and the best of Feldman's together. We enjoy preparing, we enjoy food, we enjoy having a chance to experiment. I remember when I first met Jacqueline, she literally controlled the Rosenberg menu for what was on offer with all of her various cookbooks. And I tried to impress upon her the American way of cooking, i.e. condiments and hot sauces and seasoned salts and everything like that. But when we went to when we started in rabbinics, we really lost the chance to do a lot of the cooking because life was just a bit too busy. But since lockdown has happened, we've had many culinary adventures. So
and actually it was a whole family. It's been really special that we've been doing quite a lot of adventure, and I think lots of people have been doing this, trying different recipes and trying different cooking adventures together. I'm very much a traditional chicken soup on Friday night. Chicken soup, roast potatoes and roast chicken. That is our traditional wonderful Friday night. But we've actually been experimenting and doing things really quite differently, haven't you? Do you want to tell everyone about some of our adventures?
So it all started quite innocently when Jacqueline made a most delicious with the kids. It was for a weekday. Most delicious. It was sesame chicken with rice, and it was
like a Chinese sesame chicken.
One of
the ones that's been floating around on one of these, like all the different quarantine and lockdown Facebook groups. So I had to make the chicken that everyone else was talking about. And the comment at the end of the evening was, "Wow, this tastes even better than Metsuyan." I was really quite chuffed, I have to say.
So we started thinking about themed Friday nights, and we thought about themed Friday nights that would be a bit of a patchka to prepare, meaning that you wouldn't automatically have the ingredients in stock. It wouldn't be the type of thing that you could just really produce en masse. It would be quite technical, and we get everyone involved in this. So we did an Indian themed Friday night, not what you would typically have in Hertfordshire Bushy, but nonetheless we were in lockdown, so no one had to know. And we did one of these really cool things where you can do a time lapse, which means you take your video camera and you set it to a certain setting. So you put it in the kitchen and it videos all the cooking, but then it will replay it in super speed. So you see it from beginning to end, even though it's a couple of hours, it really goes quickly. And
one of the funniest things actually about it is on this time-lapse video, there's a small section where the whole kitchen empties out. For the most part, everyone's coming and going and chopping and helping and doing things. And then there's a small section on the video, it's only about 2 seconds, but it was probably about 10 minutes where we all disappeared because we actually, one of the wonderful members of our community has been did lockdown doorstep photography. So we all went outside and she took a photo of us for a donation for charity. And it's just such wonderful ideas like that, that, you know, we all just, you know, half of us wearing pajamas or whatever else the family was wearing on their regular day of lockdown where you don't need to see the rest of the world. And we had these lovely pictures taken. That was in the middle of the Indian cooking.
In the middle of the Indian, and we had everything ready, sat down for Friday night, and I thought to myself, I'm not sure if I could ever go back to chicken soup. It was so amazing.
Don't worry, we went back to chicken soup in Canada. Don't worry, we're still Jewish.
But it was close, it was touch and go. We then did a Chinese, a themed evening as well. Right now, we have prepared something absolutely ridiculous. So
we're going to be making the Ethiopian Friday night, and we have, oh, I forgot what they're called. It's like sourdough, but it's like sour pancakes. So it's teff flour and white flour. I can't remember what the Ethiopian word for it is, but we're going to be making these pancakes with the different fillings inside. It should be really, really different.
But it takes a week to make the bread. So our kitchen stinks of Ethiopian dough at the moment, and it's only going to get worse because it has to get more rotten and more rotten the better it gets. I mean, anyway, that's what it says on the recipe, so we're just following it. We don't know. Back to the Guinness, though. So why Guinness? Well, one of the things that we decided to make, and I have to say this wasn't for Friday night. It wasn't for Friday night, but we decided to make beer battered fish and chips. Beer battered fish and chips. You can't get more British than that. But the question was, which is the right beer? Sorry about that, guys. But the question is, what is the right beer to make for? I'm not gonna stop. Mom. Sorry, my mother's trying to patch in, so hopefully.
Some of the joys of social media.
Of Zooming, and my mother is one of the most consistent and determined people on the planet. So until I answer, she probably is going to continue. So let's see how long we can string this along. Anyway, we looked up what's the best beer to use for beer battered fish and chips, and it turns out that actually Guinness is one of them. Is one of the beers of choice. So if you do enjoy a stout, if you enjoy something which is a little bit thicker, it's actually a fantastic fish and chips.
It really, really was.
But
I just wonder, I don't know if people can people unmute themselves? Or,
yeah, guys, can you
if
try?
Anyone wants to unmute themselves, is there anything particularly special that you really enjoyed? Something different, something special? And we're not saying most of the time of lockdown we've just been on survival mode. We've really not had a lot of time to do lots of these lovely projects. It sounds like, you know, everything's wonderful and we've had time to do.
It has been wonderful. We've had plenty of time. It's been absolutely great.
Really not. But this is one thing that we've been able to do. So is there anyone who wants to share one interesting thing or different thing that you've had time to do during these last few months?
Feel free if you want to unmute yourself. You can also comment in the comment box if you want us to read it out. If you don't want to speak, just type in and we'll have a chance to listen as well. Either way, those are some of the highlights. Other things that we've done is I'm sure along with almost everyone else, we've had a chance to explore a lot of the bushy countryside, which has been absolutely phenomenal. One episode was particularly interesting. These are all happening on Shabbat afternoons. So Ruvain, who is, he's the trailblazer in the family. He's the one he's the adventurer. He's the one who leads the way on many of these excursions. The problem is Ruvain is extremely self-confident. That doesn't mean that he actually has plotted out a route particularly well. So we discovered that in Larkin Drive, I'm sure you guys know this, is a nature trail, which you can access.
Oh no, you're not going to tell this story.
Yeah, why not? We're just amongst friends over here.
Please don't tell anyone in the authorities. Anyone.
I'll let you.
I'm the rule sticker to, and Achanan takes after a different part of the family.
Yeah, I follow.
He doesn't follow rules as well.
I follow laws that are given by a higher power and higher authority. That's how I look at things. Anyway, the point is, Ruben probably follows after, takes after me a little bit. So we went on this Larkin Drive, the nature trail, which takes you out to the entrance of where Merry Hill begins. And then you go on Merry Hill, and from Merry Hill, you can, obviously it's massive, but if you go left, what Ruvain discovered was you could basically see in the distance Hartsbourne Golf Club. So Ruvain said as follows: if you can see it, that must mean there's a path to get into it. So if we want to end our walk in Hartsbourne, all we need to do is to go Yashar, Yashar, Yashar.
I think it's from all his Gemara learning, I have to say. I think that's really where he gets his incredible logic and
his Gemara cup.
And ability to swindle his way out of every situation is definitely from learning Gemara.
Yashar, Yashar. So we had full faith in Ruvain, but actually no better ideas of what we should do. So we followed him, and it turns out that golf clubs make their courses in a way that they won't have something called trespassers. Now, you probably aren't familiar with this term trespasser. It's the person that's not supposed to be going into the place that they're not allowed to be. Are you familiar with
that? That was a Talmudic explanation over there.
Right, okay. So how do they do that? Because in a golf, it's quite large, a golf course. So how do you if you make a fence around the whole thing, it's quite challenging, especially with all the trees and stuff like that. So they had a better idea. They made a ditch. And the way the ditch works is you have a tree line. It's quite thick. And then you have another tree line. And then in between it, it drops down. And there's a creek and a brook and mud and slime and Shabbos clothing.
Yeah.
And
interesting combination. That's all we can say.
And then
somehow we found our way to Hartsbourne.
Now, how it worked was quite simple. Ruvain got across and he said, if I can do it, you could do it for sure. So I have a bit of an issue, which is that I've yet to be able to accept that my kids are able to do something that I'm not able to do. Jacqueline long ago has given up the fantasy.
I resigned, yeah.
Just get on with it.
Yeah.
And this actually leads me to something which happened today. We're still in the present time, which I'll once I'm sharing shame, I might as well continue sharing shame. Anyway, we did get across, and we did find out afterwards that although there was a period of time where Hartsbourne, we were happy for people to use their fields and for walking around. Probably when we were there, they were beginning to not be as pleased about it. So if anyone is listening to this, this is certainly not a right to be able to go there, although it's quite a beautiful area. Better to
find the other route, find the normal way on the path. Stick to the path. How about that? Just stick to the path. In Torah, that's always our way. Just stick to the path. Don't get through the ditch.
We're like a great combination, aren't we?
Stick to the path, everyone. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if anyone sees any of our children ever behaving in a less than exemplary manner, you know exactly which strain of the family, which parent is responsible for that streak in them.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
So today was another experience, which was particularly interesting. This one was involving cycling. I know, Jeff, you're on. So you would automatically assume that when I say cycling, I mean Ruvain, because obviously Ruvain's a cyclist in the Feldman family. I don't mean Ruvain, I mean Shlomo. Shlomo is just turning 11. He's in the apprentice stage of cycling, which means he's just learning how to cycle. He hasn't even passed his proficiency yet. And really... And
Ruvain's really training him, but saying that actually, Ruvain's training the whole family in the way that Yaakov knows that he's got his ideal road bike that he should be getting, that he talks about on a regular basis.
Yeah. Richard, I'm going to come over to your comment in a second. So Shlomo is in the middle of learning, and he said to me, Abba, why don't we go for a ride together? Now I'm looking at Shlomo, and he's yet to develop muscularly. He's only almost 11 years old. Fine, I can't. Ruvain could obviously wipe the floor with me, but at least I could have a bit of pride with Shlomo, because he's just beginning to cycle. So we decide we go for a cycle around Chiltern Avenue. From Chiltern Avenue, we went down to the Avenue, and then around towards Little Bushy Lane, and then up something called Little Bushy Lane. Now, apparently, they've made the incline in the road steeper this past week than it was before then. And that's the only explanation that I can obviously come up with. But it wasn't just this week. What happened was they increased the incline after Shlomo already went through the road. And then when it was my turn, the gradient started getting a little bit more severe. It's with great pride that I can say that Shlomo is becoming a superb cyclist, and his father has.
And please God, one day Elchonan's going to reach the heights that Reuven and Shlomo are, and be as good a cyclist as they are.
Absolutely, but it's a work in progress, a very much work in progress. Richard, you had a comment that wanted to take a look. Yeah, so Richard is sharing that one of the pleasures that he's had with lockdown is actually sitting down with the family and watching some TV programs that he hasn't had a chance to watch. He put some recommendations. Friday night dinner. Apparently, that's one I'm not going to be watching, and also some other great dramas on BBC as well. And it's actually true. One of the things that we had a chance to watch together was The Last Dance. Maybe you should share something about it.
So it's very interesting because there's hardly anything that we agree on in terms of what we enjoy to watch, because Elchanan likes anything that's crime or murder or violence or.
I grew up in Brooklyn, so that's basically my.
That's what he loves, and I love anything that's romance and comedy, and the.
Because Jacqueline grew up in Golders Green. So.
Yeah, the other end of the spectrum, whatever. But actually, I was really interested to watch The Last Dance because I know obviously Michael Jordan. I probably knew more about him from what was the.
Space Jam.
From Space Jam than from actually following any of his basketball when I was younger. But I was really curious to understand that culture, and I love understanding modern history and how things develop. And it was really, really interesting to be able to follow it. But what was so lovely is how much of it really reflected Elchonan's childhood. Like he was really living through this series because he remembered all of it. It was really very special to see that. But I think Elchonan, just before we end off, I know there's other comments as well, but I think one of the things that I wanted to ask you as well is we've spoken about some of the really lovely things. What's been the most difficult part of this time of lockdown for you, would you say?
Okay, so that obviously is much more serious tone. I think with the shul opening now, it really is going to hit home what people have been experiencing in their own personal lives. And sometimes they were experiencing it completely isolated. Sometimes they were in hospitals. Sometimes they had some family support as well. Because of my unique role, I had an inside window into so much misfortune and so much sadness. And I think for me, seeing people going through such sorrows is something I'm never going to forget. I'm not going to recount the episodes, but when people discuss in years to come what this was about, it's not only going to be glory stories of people rising to the occasion and the charity functions and the quiz nights and the walks. I think there's going to be lots and lots of crying, and there will be a lot of trauma and healing that will need to take place. So being part of all of that helped me appreciate really what people were going through. Some in our own personal life. I've had family who have been ill. I've lost extended family members in the States as well. But without thinking about my personal side of things, just what the community and the wider community and the country and the world have gone through, and seeing so much of it up close, just really, really awful, really awful. What about from your point of view, the things that hit you?
So I think what was very interesting as this whole thing was unfolding was, it was almost like this rumor that you didn't really think was true. And then slowly it came closer and closer and closer to home. And like you say, we've personally been affected in our wider family as well. But, when the first person called me in tears because her friend's relative had passed away, or people were, and there's still people who are very, very sick in hospital that we know well. It suddenly went from being this like, yeah, have you heard about this crazy thing going on in the world? So this is something that's really, really real and something that we're living with. And I think the fact that we couldn't go and be with people, and the simplest of things of being able to give someone a hug, or just even seeing someone's face when they're going through a really challenging time, I think that that's been really, really hard for all of us. I really think that we've really missed that human interaction, both when people are going through challenges or just people who are on their own, or when people are going through celebrations as well. We had a wonderful Zoom bar mitzvah, but I remember speaking to, when we had the parents on the Zoom meeting talking about the different bar mitzvahs and what we're missing out on. And that human interaction, that we've really missed that. And as wonderful as, we're so blessed that we live in an age where we've got all this technology and you can be on incredible, inspirational, interesting, funny Zoom and different media the whole time, or on Facebook as well. But it's just not the same as that human interaction and seeing people. And I think one of the things I'm really actually, in a way, struggling with more now than when lockdown was really firm and in place, is how are we going to now go on to this new level of normal, and how are we going to I think there's a lot of anxiety now about, now that we are allowed to go into a setting with more people, is that safe? Is that okay? And how do we go back to some sort of normal within all that we've just gone through?
Yeah, the unknowns, the uncertainties of the future, whereas before it was completely taken out of our hands, but now there are decisions that do have to be made, and that's creating a lot of anxiety, both for us and as people, but also for us as community leaders as well. And that's one of the reasons why we structured the fireside chats in the way that we have. Looking at the past, seeing the foundations that we've had, that we've shared, that we've experienced, focusing on the present to help us talk out what this has all been about, to maybe digest it a little bit, because that's very difficult to do in the moment, but stopping as we're doing now allows that to happen a little bit. And then talking about the future, which is in line with the government guidance, with the chief rabbi, with the United Synagogue, with us locally, and Bushy. And I think that's a very big conversation. And we probably aren't the only ones who are concerned, what's the future going to look like? And people want to talk about it. That's going to be next week. And because we anticipate it being quite an extensive conversation,
especially after today's the government guidelines today, it looks like we are going to be heading back to shul in some very different form, but very soon. So yeah, I think we're going to need to have a longer conversation, but also a more open conversation where people can come on and share what they're thinking. So more a traditional Zoom session where we're all going to be asking questions or sharing ideas, rather than just us talking about what the future is going to look like. And it's specifically to do with shul, but I think more to do with us as a community. That's where we're going to be focusing next week.
So the schedule for next week will be as follows. We're going to have a couple of events that will be taking place. So it'll be a busy week. We're going to have Rabbi Steady Cook, which will be good.
First on Sunday night. We've got a really exciting Sunday night, our women's hour. We've got Susie Goldberg talking about being a shadchan. So if you think of matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof, this is your modern, very trendy, cool equivalent of Yenta the matchmaker.
So that's Sunday night on Women's Hour. And then we have on Monday for the community, Rabbi Steady Cook, where a number of Rabbanim will be contestants on who can make the best burger, chips, and side and salad. That'll be.
I'm correct. You're the only American, though, right?
I'm the only American that will be on it.
We've got it in the bag.
Absolutely, and also I believe that it will be judged on votes. So considering the fan base that we have locally in Bushy,
come on, Bushy.
I have nothing to
Start
worry
voting.
about. Ashley Blaker will be presenting on it, so it will be a classic, great experience. And then Tuesday evening, in conjunction with Borum Wood, we're going to have a discussion on organ donations in Halacha. Diane Gelly will be coming on as well as to hear some of the government guidance and what it means for the Jewish community. So that will be taking place on Tuesday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are busy days. You can't miss the Parsha Pearls. Obviously, we wouldn't let that happen on a Wednesday. So we're going to then have to go to Thursday. On Thursday evening, I think we're going to do the Fireside Chat.
The third of the Fireside.
The third one. So we're going to change the flyer and send it around. And that one will be an 8:30 to 9:30. Do justice. We'll give it an hour
with a chance for people to ask questions.
For people to discuss, and it'll be an open forum to have space and time. We've reached the conclusion of our time for this evening. Are there any final thoughts or comments that anyone has to unmute yourself or that you wanted to share before we close for the evening until next week?
If anyone wants,
can I just ask? When will we know when we're going back into shul? I'm not asking when we'll go back into shul, but when will we know when we're going back into shul?
Okay, I believe by the end of this week there will be an extensive communication from the shul office that will go out that will cover reopening and what we have planned.
We just want to avoid having to send out something that then changes, which is what's been happening in the schools actually with our kids, is they send out an email and then 2 days later it's completely irrelevant. So we're just waiting till all the guidelines will come through. And then, there's a lot of work that's gone into it and it's almost ready to go.
The documents are all ready. We have, it's all prepared, but the United Synagogue haven't officially communicated with the shuls yet what they're going to allow and in what way they're going to allow it. So as soon as they do, we're going to, whatever minor modifications are necessary, we will send it all out. So you'll please God, by Shabbat this week, you'll know what's going on for the
Shabbat. And then you'll have lots of time to come up with all your questions for next Thursday.
Anything else from anyone?
But what you sent out yesterday, was that old news now then?
What did I send out yesterday? Remind me.
What you filmed on Sunday.
Oh, okay, fine. So that's not. So that is all fine and right, but it will be accompanied by a Q&A, frequently asked questions and answers, a cover letter, and a few other details.
It wasn't yet ready to go live.
Yeah.
It was recorded, but it's not yet ready to go live.
So that's all fine, but it will be as part of a package to help understand the whole context.
Can I just say that Reuven must have been speaking very loud when he was talking about going down the back of Hartspawn, because Adrian Cohen must have heard him, because we met him on Shabbat afternoon and we went down the fields to try and find Hartspawn. And after walking for 3 hours, I decided to turn right and Adrian decided to go left. So we came back home and the next thing we heard was that they got lost and they got back home at 10:30.
They came out near Oxley at 10:30.
Well, it serves you right.
I think we'll never find it again. I have to be one of those things that I don't think we'll ever get to the same place ever again.
Start at the destination and work back.
It was a lovely walk.
Exactly.
But I don't think the golfers would appreciate it. This was a few weeks ago before people were golfing, so I don't think they'd appreciate any trespassers anymore.
Yeah. But also it teaches you a great lesson about listening to Reuven anyway, which is something that we learned the hard way.
Okay, we should really take into account.
But thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's lovely to have you all on here.
Keep well. Enjoy the rest of the week, and looking forward to staying in touch soon. Have a good night.
Good night.